Thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Wow, what a crowd. So we're going to kick off the first session of today's dialogue. We have on stage today with us Steve and Danny, two accomplished entrepreneurs with very exciting stories to tell. In the next 20 minutes, I guess we'll kickstart with simple introduction of what your business is all about, your business model, and your experience in starting up your business. And then we'll have a dialogue, and hopefully we'll be able to save some time for question and interaction with members of the audience. Shall we start with you?
Great.
Right.
Thank you, Eugene. Very excited to be here as part of Jumpstarter today. Thank you for everyone for attending this event. To share my little bit background about myself, I started actually my entrepreneurial career at the age of 12, selling baseball cards at a baseball card shop. Then I started working from the age of 15, basically part-time wise as a telemarketer, and some internet companies at the age of 18 until I was ready to start my real entrepreneurial career at the age of 25. So at 25, I franchised Huilo-san into the US. So it was a dessert chain based out here in Hong Kong. I did that for about 3 to 4 years, in which then I started a hospitality furniture business, importing and exporting furniture from China into the US. And I got started with that business via Alibaba. At that time, it was about 12, 13 years ago, which I used Alibaba's website to actually find manufacturers that was making hotel furniture. I also did that for 3, 4 years before I ventured into e-commerce and internet, in which I moved from San Francisco to Hong Kong to start a company called You Buy, I Buy. Due to that experience, when we started, it was 4 people. When I left that company, we were subsequently acquired by Groupon, and we had over 300 employees at the time, overseeing about revenues of 130 million USD. And this was about in 2014. After I left, I started investing in early stage companies, but I still had the itch to be in an operational role and making an impact in the company, and where then I dived into my new company, which is Prenetics, and we are now doing genetic testing. So very, very different industries. In the last 2.5 years, we've been able to grow from about 10 people to a team of 90 people. We are the leading genetics testing digital health company in Southeast Asia. We have already over $50 million USD in funding. Certainly Alibaba is part of this funding round. So we're the most well-funded health technology company in the region. I'm very happy to share my entrepreneurial story with ups and downs, challenges, and of course being positive throughout this journey, because it's not always easy to stay positive, and that's one of the very important traits of being an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Danny.
Steve?
So you really are a serial entrepreneur with an occasional investor. So just before we get on to Steve, I just want to very quickly ask you, what made you select your latest venture, which is genetic testing?
Well, many reasons, right? I mean, ultimately, I wanted to do something that was quite impactful to society as a whole, right? Because I was already in technology, e-commerce, and I was like, hey, there's 2 industries really that hasn't been impacted much by technology, is healthcare and education. And if you think about it, if we see the doctor today, it's pretty much the same as you saw a doctor 20, 30, 40 years ago. And then when I looked at genetics, I was personally very amazed by the potential impact of using your saliva sample and identifying predispositions towards disease, cancer. And certainly if you know earlier, you're able to proactively take measures on your health. So that's very, very powerful to me. And I think ultimately when you're trying to build a company, if there's additional benefits that can potentially impact people, that's very powerful.
Okay, thank you, Danny. So Steve, over to you. Glo Station.
Hi guys. So I started my first business when I was at the age of 18, making computer games to pay for college tuition. So after I graduated, I continued to bootstrap my company out of my own bedroom. And when I saved enough money, I decided, I'll just go to Hong Kong and try to expand from there. And that was back in 2009. And from 2009, we did very well. We grew from about 3 people to 30 staff. And we just made computer games, really high quality computer games. And during that time, the mobile revolution was happening. But I was very comfortable, so I ignored it. And that was a mistake because PC market was shrinking. And by the time we tried to go into mobile, it was already too late and it almost bankrupted my company. So the learning lesson was, at least in technology, you have to be fast-paced. So I try not to make the same mistake again. And that's why in 2016, when VR was starting to blossom with HTC Vive and Oculus, I jumped right in and I decided, okay, we're going to build Glo Inc. But this time, not just with my personal savings, but also my friends invested in me. So we launched the product. We built it for 1 year, and we launched it in June. And since then, we've been getting a lot of traction. It's in Hong Kong right now. And just 2 weeks ago, we opened Glo Station in Los Angeles. So the future is we're planning to bring this Hong Kong technology to every cities in the world, pretty much.
Right. Thank you, Steve. The common trait between the two of you is that you both started investing and starting business ideas while you were teenagers. You in your early teen and you in your late teens. So let's kickstart this discussion with some life lessons, if we can, for our members of our audience. As young people starting off business ideas, were there any guiding principles? What was guiding you? Were you just exploring, or did you have some business principles that were guiding you?
I think in general wise, you have to choose something that you're really passionate about, whatever that may be. Don't try to start a business just to start a business, but try to solve a real problem. Look at what the problem is and see if you actually have a solution, and see if that solution actually offers a real value proposition to the user-wise, right? Because in the many businesses that I've started, it was quite clear that the value proposition that we have or providing to our customers is very clear, and that we have a differentiating factor. So if you're looking to start a business just to start it, you may not actually get a lot of benefit from that. And certainly, I think the key guiding principle is that to start a business, it takes a lot of sacrifice. Weekends, long evenings, and in most cases, I'm sure with Steve, this has to become your first priority. There's really no work-life balances. You actually have to integrate your life into your work. So that's something that you have to decide for yourselves if that's something that you're willing to give up and sacrifice for, because it's not going to be for 1, 2, 3 years time. I mean, Steve's been young for the last 9 years. I've been an entrepreneur for the last, I would say, 14, 15 years. And through this journey, you're constantly putting work first. You're constantly putting career first, and you're constantly working hard. There's no off days, even when you're on holiday. Huh?
Steve, what do you think?
It's pretty much to echo what Danny said. When you do a startup, it's a very long journey, and the important thing about, being part of this journey is the people that you have with you must also believe in the same vision. There must be an alignment. So I think when we started Glo Inc., the team I had with me, they believe that we do have a potential to create one of the most amazing VR experience that we can build, because there will be times when you just feel like we're going to fail, nobody's going to want this, and you need to have that positivity and hope to kind of push you forward, and you need the right team to be there to kind of support each other,
But where do you start? I think a lot of people have great ideas, and a lot of people have conviction. A lot of people have passion. These are qualities which are not uncommon. So given that everybody has a bright idea and might be able to offer a solution to a problem which might be impactful, where do you begin? Where do you start? How do you begin by assembling the team, for example, which is the most practical problem?
I would say first thing, ideas are not worthless, right? So many people have good ideas, but it's the individuals that can go further beyond the idea, and this is something they're willing to give up to do it. And you also have to not have a backup option, because if you're thinking, I'm going to try this, part-time, etc., most times it's not going to fail. It's going to fail, right? So the first step is basically have an idea, then okay, actually do it. Give up your day job or whatever it is that you're working on. Tell your partner that you're going to sacrifice this career, and that you have to make it successful. And certainly, like to Steve's point, the team is very, very important, because through the downtime is when these things come up to surface. So finding the team members that share the same vision, that believe in the path and believe in your leadership, that's going to also make the difference. So these things are key. Execution team, funding. So funding-wise, I would say for early stage entrepreneurs, your best friends, your family members are the ones where you're going to get funding from because no one else is going to believe you. And that same thing started with myself. When I first started business, it was just through my family, friends, my savings. And you have to be willing to give that up. You have to be willing to sacrifice all of your close people to you to actually believe in you. But once you do that, the next rounds will get much easier. Then you're successful. People will willingly give you money to start your business.
Before we get on to funding, I just wanted to ask about, again, asking this question about starting the team. Should the early team, the core team, the core team that's with you during the downtimes, should that be a hired team or should that be a partnership team?
Well, I think every situation is different. There's definitely a benefit with co-founders, but I think in the end, what really mattered are a couple core traits that I learned. One is definitely the team has to have grit. They gotta adapt. I mean, we've seen ideas, right? As Danny said, ideas are very plentiful. But what is more important is execution. An idea changes over time. It evolves, it adapts, and when you learn more information, or what we call more truth, then your idea has to change with it. And when you have a team that can execute very well, that's when there's a higher chance that you will be successful in the end.
To add to that, I would think when you start off a company, I mean, ideally you probably have 2 to 3 different co-founders, and then you hire the rest, right? And again, hire people that believe in your vision. At the same time, remember your team is not your family. Especially when you grow through the growing stages, the team that you have initially from 0 to 20 or 0 to 50 may not be the team that you need when you have 50 to 100 people. Because you have different skill sets, you have different growth stages of the company, right? So it's very key to not basically understand this is a team but not a family, and you have to hire, replace people as necessary. It may sound harsh, but that's the reality of business, right? That at the stage where you're 100 people, the people that you need are much higher caliber because you need that 100 people to grow to 500 people.
You need managers.
Yeah, you need managers and people that are experienced. And you have to really understand that, and that's the reality.
Right. Okay, let's talk about funding. So we're in Hong Kong, one of the most expensive cities in the world to live and to work, where it costs a fortune to have a physical premise. It costs a lot of money to hire people, hire talent. So how do you source for funding? So you dipped into your family savings. You dipped into the earnings from your previous investments. For people who are starting off fresh in Hong Kong, when they have to give up their day job and go pour all into this, what are some of the avenues for funding?
I would say be nice to your parents, number one, right? So don't piss them off. So because that's where you're gonna get the most traction in terms of funding from your friends and family, because you have to be realistic. You go talk to a VC, you're in a job and you haven't done business before, no VC is gonna give you some money. I mean, that's the reality of truth, right? So, and be realistic with how much you want. Initially, it could be 100,000 US, 200,000 US, and after you get some traction, 3 to 6 months or 12 months of traction, some metrics that you can actually show to an early stage VC, then you can go to a VC. Again, be realistic with your plans and what you're actually seeking for. But for early stage, if you have had 0 entrepreneurial experience, then I would say friends and family.
So it's the bank of mom and dad.
Pretty much, right? Or your savings if you had.
Right. What about you, Steve?
Well, I've done bootstrapping before and also done VC, and there's just quite a big difference. But if you're just starting out, I think if you can bootstrap to a minimal viable product, that's very important. A product you can share with people, what your vision would be and how you grow that product. Because once you have that, I believe getting VC funding will be easier to do.
Okay. Before we touch on the point of VC funding, I just wanted to give the opportunity to the audience and see whether anybody wants to raise a question or make an observation to either Steve or Danny. Yes, louder.
Hello. I think your microphone's a little bit soft, man.
Maybe hold the mic closer to your... apart from that, anybody wants to raise a question?
Don't be shy. So, I mean, my background is actually very, I mean, I studied management information systems, right? But then when I went to school-wise, my first job, as mentioned, was I was a telemarketer. Then I was an internet sales manager for Barracuda Networks, selling spam firewalls. I think the key thing is to be very diversified. And also, there's so much information that individuals can learn today on Google. Because through each of my different ventures, whether it's hotel furniture, genetics, e-commerce, for the most part, I've learned all of that myself on Google. Because if you search for the right keywords and such, read the right papers, talk to the right people, there's a lot of information that you can learn. It's just, are you willing to put in the effort, the hours, the dedication to make that happen?
Steve, what did you study?
I'm engineering. That's my background, so pretty relevant.
Hello, I have questions for Danny. Regarding the purchase, you sold your company, you buy to Groupon. How did it come about? Was it who approached who? Was it a lengthy negotiation?
So basically, I mean, I started the company back in March 2nd, 2010. Actually, and then we set up the company June 28th, 2010. We were acquired 51% on December 1st, 2010. So after 6 months, we actually set up the operations. The company were acquired. We're already doing $1 million US in monthly business after 6 months of operations. So when Groupon were seeking internationally, they were actually looking for the market leaders, right, in each of the countries. But it's a good story. I'm just trying to think. So back in September, I actually was in the office, pretty late in the office, and then I cold called Groupon's head office in the US. At that time, they were already a $1 billion company, and I don't know what happened to me. I was late. It was 1 a.m. in the office. I cold called. I said, "Can I speak to Andrew Mason, the CEO of Groupon?" And they said, "Oh, he doesn't take messages." Then I was like quite shocked. I didn't know what to say, and I hung up. I called back and says, "Oh, can I leave a message?" And it's like, "This is Danny with Alibaba. I have a company in Hong Kong. We'd like to see if you're interested in a potential partnership." I didn't think of anything of it. 1 week later, their M&A guy emailed me back and said, "Hey, you left a message for Andrew. We'd like to understand a little bit more about your business." And after that, then they flew me over to Chicago, discussed more of our metrics, what we're doing, and then basically 3-4 months after that, they acquired 51% of the company. And 2 years later, they acquired the rest of the 100% of the company.
A couple of principles emerge out of that little story. One is all in. You have nothing to lose, so you cold call all in. Second, you offered a solution to potentially a problem that they had.
I think in general-wise, everyone should be just take a proactive because you should ask, right? If you don't ask, you actually don't know what the result is. So certainly, I think I asked a question, which a lot of times, even if it was no or whatever, it wouldn't have affected me. But the upside of me having done so is that I'm being very proactive. Right? And the same a lot of times when job seekers are applying for Prenetics and enroll here, I actually pay extra attention to the people that doesn't just apply on LinkedIn. They actually send an extra note to myself personally, or they do a little bit of extra research. Right? It takes maybe an extra 5 minutes, but that will actually make you stand out from the crowd. So it's a little extra, more research, more resources, and then it's how do you differentiate yourself from many other people? And that's how much you want to work.
Hi, Simon from Yuntong Sugar. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Simon from Yuntong Sugar. What are your dreams and aspirations now at your current stage of life?
Sorry, who are you directing the question to?
Both of them. Danny,
repeat the question.
What are your dreams and aspirations now at your current stage of life?
Sure. Your dreams and aspirations change throughout the journey, right? So, maybe my dreams 5 years ago and 2 years ago, even today, are different. Today, ultimately, at least right now, is to actually make a positive impact on my company and what we can provide to society. I get personally very, very happy when individuals use our test results and then they're making positive changes to their diet and lifestyle. Because what we do know today is that chronic diseases represent 90% of cases where it can be prevented. So anything that individuals can do earlier to detect their disease, or proactive screening or early health screening or early health management, that's a significant opportunity. And ultimately that relates to business success. So if we do that right, ultimately the business will be successful.
Well, I just want to apologize first. It's just very loud. They're playing our virtual reality experience right now. But we've been very lucky to build this experience. And my dream is to bring this pretty much all over the world. It was a very hard journey to actually make this work. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think that's all the time we have for this session. Sorry, did you want to ask a quick question? Yeah.
Can you each tell us one of the worst things that happened to you and how you overcame it?
Well, there's so many worse things that happened to me. I don't know where to start, right? But you have to understand, as an entrepreneur, there's so many ups and downs, and it's not all fun and games. It's definitely not all fun and games and such. So you have to be persistent. So in each of the businesses, I think I went through a journey where for 6 to 12 months, initially there's no business. And then you feel very sad about this, because then you have to question if you make that right decision. Right? And so overcoming that is very important, and being persistent to your value proposition is very important. Specifically, there was a time where, this was time at Groupon-wise, where there was a situation where we sold a lot of Macau Dragon vouchers to individuals, but the company Macau Dragon, they went bankrupt. So overnight, we basically lost about $13–14 million HKD, and that was a very big mistake. And I could have gotten fired for that incident as the CEO. However, the next day, I made the decision without actually talking to headquarters that we will refund everyone that bought the voucher but didn't use the voucher. Because that was a good thing, because I felt responsible that individuals which bought the voucher, they didn't use it, we should be responsible for refunding them. Ultimately, I didn't get fired, luckily. At the same time, our customers appreciated that we were so honest and transparent by offering them refunds. Because the same situation happened to three or four other group buying companies where they didn't take responsibility for those actions. They said, hey, it's not my fault. And it's Macau Dragon's fault. Because legally, contractually, we weren't obligated to refund individuals. So it was a big loss, but ultimately, long-term wise, we made up for it by doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, so the worst thing actually happened this March in our company. We were trying to raise the next round funding, and I pitched to 8 investors, and all 8 investors rejected us. We were 6 months away from having a product, but we only had 1 month of cash left. So I did what my family and my close friends told me not to do, which was I invested my life savings back into the company. And I told my team, this is all the money I had. We cannot build this in 6 months. We have to do it in 3 months. And they did that. We launched in June. And the moment we launched, people just loved our product. So I just kind of remembered how difficult it was just sometimes to convince other people about your product. So that's why convincing your team, or if your team believes in your product, it really matters from there.
I'll just add with one thing, is that as an entrepreneur-wise, and I see a lot of young faces in the audience, rejection is something that you guys have to be very, very good at and deal with it and just not dwell on it, right? Because basically it's part of the entrepreneurial journey, because every time I started a business, when I moved to Hong Kong in 2010, I would talk to 100 people, 99 people would tell me this would not work in Hong Kong because it was too convenient, people don't shop online, etc., etc. But if you believe in your value proposition, again, you can make it work. You have to be persistent. And if something bad goes wrong, forget about it and move on. Because if you keep thinking about it, dwelling on it, that affects your mood, affects your team, etc. Because ultimately, if you're going to be successful, you will be successful. And you'll overcome challenges, rejections along the way, because it's very difficult. But the rewards are there in terms of making impact, creating jobs, yourself, your family. So certainly, I encourage everyone that's thinking about starting a new business to just do it.
Great, thank you. That's a great note to end the session on. So please join me in thanking Steve and Danny. I'm sure they'll be available for more mingling and for more communication with you folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, Steve and Danny. It's a very nice sharing, and our audiences enjoy it so much. Thank you.